I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you. Jesus says that in Luke's account of the Last Supper. But I'm saying to you, we aren't just remembering something tonight. We are entering into that moment. Tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday, we are participating in that continuous liturgy that makes present the most important event in all of time and space. Entering into this reality with you is not just a nice addition to us as parish and pastor. It helps to define our relationship. Sharing in this Triduum, this triple liturgy with you, my people, is a sign that I truly belong here. Though this place has felt like home for a few months now, and though there is, of course, room for growth, this is the time of the year that most says to my heart, these people, I am theirs, and they are mine. And it's my custom every year to celebrate the Paschal Triduum with a series of interrelated homilies. Tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday will be a three-part reflection on a key theme. And this year, Jesus has asked me to talk about healing. We will reflect on how the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ heals us. It heals us as a community. Tonight's focus. It heals us in our souls, the focus of tomorrow. And it heals us in our bodies, the Easter Vigil. So what does it mean to say that Jesus heals our community? I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you is not Jesus' way of just saying that he likes a good meal with friends. This is God speaking to a broken and divided humanity. Because the Passover is not just a meal. It's the defining moment of the Israelite people. Why is this night different from all other nights? A child asks that question during the Jewish Seder meal, the Passover meal. And the answer to that question is that tonight, the Passover, is the night God fulfills his promise to make us a people, a nation, a community. Ever since the sin of Adam and Eve, human beings have been divided from God, divided from each other. Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood, the Tower of Babel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt, and finally makes of them a nation, a people holy to the Lord, not a collection of individuals holy to the Lord, but a people. They are not freed and brought into the covenant as individuals, but as a whole. And to be reconciled to God requires us to be reconciled to the people of God. This is what so many churches get backwards. They think that community is the result of saved individuals who get together. But that's not who God is. The Trinity is not a result of God deciding to add more persons. Three divine persons in one God has always been true. And God creates humanity by saying, "Let us make." And he creates mankind in his image, male and female. God exists as a communion before time begins, and God creates humanity in a state of communion. The entire point of the story of Adam naming the animals is that he does not name himself until he sees Eve. Marriage is the primary natural example of communion, but our goal is the supernatural communion with God and all of humanity. So, to be saved is the result of communion. Jesus saved his bride, the church, and he saves us by incorporating us into that bride. To heal us from sin, to save us from death, to open the path to eternal life. Jesus has to draw us into communion with himself and each other. That's why he eagerly desires to eat the Passover with us. That's why he commands his disciples, do this in memory of me. It is this gift that heals not just individuals, but a community. And that communion is not superficial. It isn't the apostles pretending to get along. It's not us just avoiding conflict. Authentic communion is hard because it makes us vulnerable. It is because of his friendship that Jesus is betrayed by Judas. Jesus could have been a lone wolf, solo hero, and avoided the whole mess. But he didn't. He fostered a communion with his apostles that left him vulnerable and ultimately cost him his life. But he did it anyway. Why? Because it's the point. And to show us this, on the very night of his betrayal, he demonstrates for us what community is, what communion looks like. The Eucharist is called communion for a reason, and it cannot be superficial. It has to be honest and true. To receive the Eucharist, to receive communion in a state of mortal sin, does not help us, because it becomes a lie, pretending to be in communion while wounding it. Judas receives communion wrongly, is immediately possessed by Satan, and then goes outside into the darkness to pretend we are in communion when we're not. Only serves the father of lies. Which is why Jesus does something else first. Something I'm about to imitate. He washes his disciples' feet. Simon Peter says, "You will never wash my feet," giving Jesus the chance to explain why this matters. "Unless I wash you, you will have no inheritance with me." Simon Peter, in his usual enthusiasm, suddenly wants the whole bath. But Jesus tells him, whoever has bathed has no need except to have his feet washed, for he is clean all over. In other words, you've already been baptized. You don't need another baptism. You just need to wash off the dirt you've gotten on your feet after your baptism. A symbolic way of saying original sin is gone. The old sin is gone. You just need to wash away the sins you've picked up since. It's a sign of confession. By washing their feet and telling them to wash one another's feet, Jesus is teaching his disciples that communion with him, true union in this Passover, requires us to be reconciled to God and to each other. So yes, passages like this back up our teaching on not receiving communion in a state of mortal sin. But it's also a lesson to us in what community means. That it means trust. It means vulnerability. It means forgiveness. It means shared life experience. Vulnerable enough to be betrayed, yet still willing to forgive. Judas, sadly, does not accept this forgiveness, but the offer is there as Jesus washes his feet, knowing what he's going to do. Judas also heard Jesus tell the apostles to do what he has done. He had every chance to realize that his fellow apostles would have forgiven him. We are expected to forgive even those who try to kill us. The healing of community, the healing of communion is central to Jesus' mission. Me and my Jesus is impossible. I've watched with great sorrow on a few occasions as Christians have left their communities, hung on to faith for a little while alone, and then lose it altogether. Why? Because being healed in communion with others is a necessary part of our healing as individuals. Jesus cured lepers so they could rejoin society. He spoke of gathering lost sheep back to the flock. He healed a paralytic because of the faith of his friends. And he raised Lazarus from the dead for the sake of his sisters. You need communion. You are made for communion. Heaven is communion. It matters more than literally every created thing in the universe. All the money, all the power, all the pleasure in the world means nothing without communion. But we live in the most fractured, atomized existence of the world has ever seen. Individuals constantly using 10,000 conveniences to get by without each other. Divided loyalties, excessive commitments, constant distraction. It's not how human beings are meant to live. It's not how Jesus lived. He spent 30 years living in a small town with his family. He spent the last 3 years with his apostles, being with them every single day. It wasn't once a week or once a month for a hangout session. It wasn't the occasional gathering over a mutual hobby. It was a meaningful, shared life. Food and fun together, yes, but also mission together, suffering together, life in communion, not life with occasional intersections. Meaningful in that it's rooted in mission, shared in that we ought to share time and space and possessions with someone. How often do you share a meal with the same people? Once a day with your family? Once a week with friends? Once a month with fellow members of the town and the parish? I bet it's less than that for most of you. It is for me. We are so busy. We have so many things to do. School and work and sports and hobbies and politics and projects. So much. Do these things matter? How many of them are a shared mission, a purpose that flows from our communion with each other and supports it? Jesus is literally the perfect man. He never sinned, never deviated from God's will. He never wasted a single second of his life. And was his life a frantic jumping from one activity to the next? No. Sometimes he spent long days at hard work, but almost never alone. Sometimes he lounged about, telling stories, eating food, and drinking. He had 3 years to do ministry, and he spent the vast majority of it, nearly every day, with the same 12 people. He did a lot of things that people might consider a waste of time, but was it? Of course not. Why don't our lives look like his? Do we act like we need to be busier than Jesus was? Why do we choose stuff over people? Our community, our human communion is broken. So let Jesus heal us. The fact that Jesus reveals the Eucharist at the final stage of his mission is intentional. Communion is the goal. The Eucharist isn't just a fuel source to grab and go so we can get back to all the knick-knack, fiddle-faddle tasks that tend to fill our daily lives. The Eucharist is both the source and the summit of a meaningful, shared life. How often do we treat Mass like a consumer good to fit into a busy schedule? When Jesus treats the Mass as the one thing that determines his entire life, building to this moment that he eagerly desires. If our feet are are washed by God in confession, if we wash the feet of and forgive one another, what kind of healing would this bring to our community? If we were willing to find ways to step out of the rat race, to set aside the idol of the American dream, and try instead to live a meaningful, shared life, what healing would that bring to the disjointed collection of broken and lonely individuals that we so often are? Honestly, I don't know for sure what the answer to those questions looks like. But it's because I want to find out that I say to you, that Jesus says to you, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you. So let us eat it together and be healed together.